It is now time for another interview from the backlot. This episode's guest, writer, director of 13 Fanboy, Deborah Voorhees. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Backlot 605. I'm one of your hosts. I am Casey Kelderman, and joined with me is my co-host, Sam Lenz.
Hey, everybody.
Sam,
how's it going?
Hey, how you doing? How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you doing, Casey?
I'm doing awesome because today we are joined by someone I've been looking forward to talking to for a very long time because we have a mutual friend between today's guest and us in South Dakota. This is Deborah Voorhees. She is the director of the upcoming film 13 Fanboy. Deborah, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. And the reason I brought up that we have a mutual friend between all of us is Mr. Dominic who worked on your film 13 Fanboy. He, just by circumstances, was on our podcast earlier this week as well, just by happenstance. But yeah, it's very cool that we have a South Dakota connection between all three of us in that way.
He is a dear friend and also really knows his way around a film set. He was my AD, which is assistant director for those who don't know. Basically the assistant director makes sure to help you keep things running smoothly and people know where to go and where to be at what time. It's much more about logistics. And that's a job that takes a lot of juggling.
Yeah, I heard a few of those stories from behind the scenes, and I'm like, that's good for you. That sounds like a hard job, Dominic. That sounds like a lot of work.
It was. I think he definitely was probably working almost as many hours as I was. He was pretty damn close.
Mm-hmm. Well, the movie we're talking about today is the movie that you both worked on. That you said, Dominic was the first assistant director. This is your film 13 Fanboy, which is going to be hitting VOD and select theaters October 22nd. Yeah, we're gearing up for this. I want to talk a little bit about the history of this movie because I find the history behind this movie very fascinating. Not only in how you got some of these actors, but where did like some of the storyline come from for you as a director for this type of movie?
Well, I mean, obviously stalking has been a problem for all people. It's not just a celebrity thing, but it's definitely a part of the celebrity world. Joel is my producing partner, Joel Paul Reisig, and he and I were talking about horror fans and stuff, and he was just curious. He's asking me, well, what are they like? Are they kind of scary at all? No, they're really actually pretty cool people. So they're basically a bunch of grown-up kids who still love to play dress up at Halloween. In other words, really cool and fun. Yeah. And so he was going, well, was there ever a scary moment? I said, overall, no, in the big scheme of things, but there are a couple things that were a little disturbing. One time I had somebody send me on Messenger on Facebook that, wouldn't it be cool if you died in real life like you did in Friday the 13th? And obviously that's not on the top list, my list of things to do before I go. And so it was a little bit disturbing, a little weird, creepy. I blocked the person and nothing came of it, so it was fine. And then another one was a little more disturbing because it came to my personal cell phone. And I was sitting in my office and there was a double French doors there where you could, it's dark and black outside. I have a single light on and I get a text message and it says, I'm watching you. Well, given my light and being dark, they could have very well been watching me. And then another series of texts came making it clear that the person was pretending to be Jason and that he was there to kill me. And that was really unnerving. And I blocked the number and that was the end of it and no problems. And Joel goes, that's our movie. I'm like, that is real life. That's scary. I'm thinking of doing something with like a scary monster that doesn't really exist and it's cool fun, but nothing that's that serious and real. And but I thought about it for about 4 or 5 nights, and I realized that if I could scare myself that much, I can scare other people with it. And I was like, no, this actually is the movie we need to do. And Joel's right. And he was right. I am so thrilled that we did it.
Yeah. From everything that Dominic has told us, this is going to be something pretty intense and pretty special. He was very tight-lipped, not to give anything too specific away, but he did
Right.
tell us that it was very different than a Friday the 13th movie. And
Absolutely.
having that 13 fanboy in the title, knowing that it kind of comes from a place of Friday the 13th, but it's not
Mhm.
Friday the 13th. How do you find
Right.
that balance? How did you
Well,
find those influences to come in and make something different that was still kind of inspired by that?
right. Really, it is a thriller, a horror film. It has slasher elements to it, a whodunit. And so what we're looking at something that's more reality based. And so I wanted to play it more in that context because this isn't an undead creature coming out of a grave to come and attack people. It's something that could actually happen. So I wanted something completely different. Friday the 13th has done a magnificent job of what it does, but that's Friday the 13th has its own lane. I wanted to make my own lane.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna say just by watching the trailer, I was like, yeah, this is something completely unique, different, and one of the big reasons for that is the cast you have involved, because it
Mm-hmm.
is such a massive cast of names you're gonna recognize, faces you're gonna recognize from horror iconography from years past and present. What was it
Right.
like presenting this type of movie to the cast? Because honestly, I can't think of another movie that is really putting so much real life into a horrific situation. What was the response from the
Mhm.
cast when you presented it to them?
Well, one of the things that I think was most unnerving for some of the people I spoke with was that they were playing themselves. You're not playing a character who's being stalked. You're playing yourself as, for me, it was Deborah Voorhees, a actress who was in Friday the 13th, playing in a movie about somebody stalking. And I think for some people that was a bit unnerving. And I could say it was unnerving for me too. But once I got past that, it made a lot of sense to me. Um, Dee Wallace was immediately on board when I talked to her. She, of course, is playing herself, a horror icon who is being stalked by this crazed killer. And most of you know that she was in Halloween. So that's our connection with the slasher world. And then also, of course, E.T., Cujo, Howling, and a zillion other films. We have Kane Hodder, who was Jason 4 times. He came on board fairly soon, but took some finagling. But Tracy Savage came on board right away. She loved the idea. When I approached Adrienne King, she was interested in the idea, but ultimately turned it down because she actually had a really severe situation with a stalker herself. So that became really different. So it was really about talking to each person, and sometimes they would voice the same concerns I had, same worries and things. And so it was easy for me to be able to sit there and say, look, I get you, because I felt the same way. But this is, why I still think this is a great product, because really it hasn't been done like this before.
Mhm.
Some people who haven't seen it will mistakenly think it's going to be something like Nightmare on Elm Street, when they had some of the characters playing themselves at times, but it's nothing like that. It's totally different. I think I'm hoping that it can become more of a genre within a genre, more of a realism type style horror.
That's so cool.
I was just gonna say, because of some of the names you mentioned, including Kane Hodder, we've seen them play fictionalized versions of themselves, and it's usually in a comedic role where we have seen them pop up. But to have them, again, some of these actors who have not been given a chance to pull off some of those dramatic chops, especially Kane Hodder, because he has that in him, and you can see that in many of the things he's appeared in since playing Jason. What was it like to see some of these actors that may not have gotten the chance to portray some of these, deep thematic characters, now giving them the chance now?
Well, that was one of the things that I didn't know going in was going to be so rewarding. I was worried initially when I first started directing, for myself and for some others who hadn't acted in a long time. Do we still have the chops? Can we do it? And the reality, I didn't have a single disappointment. And I think fans are going to be absolutely blown away by Kane and his performance. Everybody did an amazing job. And for Kane in particular, of course, Dee Wallace has had tons of opportunities to play incredible dramatic roles. But Kane hasn't as much, because, I tried to incorporate things that were real about them, since they were actually playing themselves. So like with Kane, he and Jennifer Benko, who was in part 7, are talking about an audition he went on, and he was frustrated because once again he was turned down because the director and producers thought of him as just a silent killer. And he loves playing the silent killer. That's a blast, but he also wants to do some of the other stuff too. And so he actually thanked me and gave me a big giant hug for giving him that moment. And he does it brilliantly. And honestly, you just go on down the line, and everybody really did a lovely job. I'm really pleased with what we have.
That's awesome. I noticed too, looking at the cast list on IMDb, most of these characters, like you said, these actors are playing themselves. But Corey Feldman does have an actual character name on IMDb. What was the decision making process for like these people who were in the Friday the 13th movies are playing themselves, but Corey Feldman, he's going to be playing a fictionalized character?
There are two reasons, really. One, it was his preference. He wanted to play a fictional character rather than a fictionalized version of himself. And two, the role that we were really looking at him for, as with any good thriller, there always needs to be a little bit of comic relief in there. And he does a brilliant job for us. And the character really has nothing to do with him. He's plays a creepy producer in it. And we looked at a couple different options for him. Since he wanted to do not play himself, that was the role that really seemed to fit well. And he's hysterical. You guys are going to love it.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite actors from that era. So I'm very excited to see what he does here, for sure.
Yeah, he really did a brilliant job. He basically took the script, got the essence of it, and then ad-libbed. And, that can be a director's nightmare, but it wasn't, because he was spitting out gold, and it was just brilliant and funny. And it was great.
I was just going to say, just watching the trailer, you can tell Corey Feldman has that comedic edge in this movie. What was it like trying to find the balance between having like the comedic edge with Corey Feldman, but then you also have kind of this darker edge with obviously people playing real life versions, and then you have throw in the horror slasher elements of kind of a bloody, kind of gory film. What was it like to kind of play with all of those and find the mixture between all three of those?
we have so many elements and so many moving parts. Hopefully we did a good job. I'm going to let the fans be the judge if we did or not. I'm very pleased with what we have. I feel like we have a nice balance. People, I want them to have all the different emotions. And we had a sneak peek for a very, very small group of people at the horror festival or horror convention in Cincinnati. And it was one of the fans said that watching the film, he went through every single emotion that there was, from even tearing up to fear to laughing to everything. And I was just like, well, then I did my job. I'm happy. I'm very happy.
That's so cool.
I was gonna say that's amazing to hear that.
Yeah,
And for
we're
like
so
for
excited.
yeah, for like a movie like this, that it's about, these actors and characters that we grew up loving and watching, in the Halloween series, Friday the 13th series, any other horror movies that they appeared in. What has it been like as for the fans building up to this movie? Because this is very much
Yeah.
a very fan involved movie. This is kind of a movie for the fans of these movies.
Absolutely. This was 100% made for them. I was actually looking actively for a story idea that I felt would work well for my horror fans, for general horror fans in general, not just those that I know. But the thing that most of the Friday the 13th fans wanted were things that really we couldn't deliver. They wanted some kind of movie that brought everybody back, but that was still Friday the 13th. So thought, okay, that's not a possibility. One, we don't know who owns the rights right now.
Mm-hmm.
So who do you even go to? But once we came up with the stalking idea, suddenly I was able to fulfill their desire of having the actors back, not the characters, but the actors back. And we've been, really welcomed open arms. We've had very few people, say anything negative. It's been mostly just thrilled. So I'm pretty happy we made this decision.
Yeah, watching the trailer and the plot synopsis, not just the nostalgia for seeing these actors that we all grew up loving, but just the story itself seems to have a very emotional backbone. And I find that most really good horror is the stuff that has like that emotional backbone. Stuff like Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Stuff like, as recently as The Final Girls. How important was it to you to have something that fans could emotionally connect with, not just on a nostalgia level, but on a premise level of essentially a woman trying to find her grandmother's killer?
Right. It absolutely had to be there. That emotion had to be there. Because without that, we don't fully connect, and we need to connect with the characters to fully get involved in the film. So to me, that was absolutely essential. Without it, it's not worth doing.
Yeah, for sure.
I was just gonna say one of the biggest things I've seen in the entirety of the horror genre, especially with this kind of new boom of slasher movies, is seeing the revitalization of what we would originally call the Scream Queen, and having some of these horror icons, including yourself, or like Barbara Crampton, or Caroline Williams coming back, or Dee Wallace in this movie here, come back and being able to deliver performances that you'd never expect out of them in the 80s, and they're coming back delivering these just powerhouse performances while also appealing to the fans of the movies that they grew up with. What was it like? What have you seen personally in terms of the revitalization of Scream Queens into the horror genre as of late?
Right. It has been really interesting. I mean, I think, for a lot of people from the 80s, that would be true. But of course, Dee Wallace, she's been doing emotional films all along. We had Cujo, The Howling. Those are definitely emotional. So, but it was really quite rewarding though to bring people back and see them really dig into those roles.
Yeah. Speaking as someone who you obviously starred in Friday the 13th Part 5, and you've actually done quite a few things in between the years leading up to this. Can you tell us about
Right.
your journey going from being in film and kind of stepping away from that and coming back into it? What made you want to
Right.
come back and make films again?
Well, after I left Los Angeles, I went to college and got my degree in journalism. Became a journalist for about 15 years with the Dallas Morning News, the Fort Worth Star Telegram. I also did a publication called the Shakespeare Standard for a while and a handful of magazines. And then I decided that I wanted to go and teach. And I taught for a period of time British literature and American literature in journalism. And that was in high school. And I ended up getting thrown out of both of those places, 2 high schools, because of Friday the 13th. They didn't have any problems with the violence. It was the nudity that they had the problem with. And so I had to reevaluate, where am I going and what am I doing? And I just thought about it and I was like, why don't I go back to an industry that's not so judgmental? And I love, storytelling. Filmmaking allows me to tell stories and, create the visuals and all of the art. Sorry about that. All of the art that comes with it. And so I just basically jumped off the cliff and I made my first film, which was Billy Shakespeare. And that was basically me going to film school. And I had to wear so many hats and I learned so much. I made a lot of mistakes, but I also learned a ton. Of course, we learn the most when we make the mistakes, right? And so I did that one. I did another one called Catching Up, which did well in the kind of the horror film festival route. And then I started doing some shorts and music videos and things like that. And then I decided, okay, I'm ready now to do another feature film, and looking for something that would be more marketable, because Catching Up was really more of a kind of an art flick. It was that black and white and a whole kind of different feel to it. It was actually a play turned into a film, but I let it work kind of a little more as a play. So it really was not something for a mass market. Although I think there's some ideas in there that could work very well for a mass market. And so I was definitely ready to make that jump. And that's when, I found Joel Paul Reisig and we started working together, came up with the idea, he and I put a strong outline together. And then I took most of the fleshing out from that moment on. And, we passed it back several times until we had what we felt good about.
What have you noticed in that time since you've come back into making films from the time that you started in film? What have you noticed in that kind of 30-year gap between the two? What have you noticed really changing in the industry?
It's huge. When I was in the industry, there was really only one way to really get into the industry. And that was, through traditional channels, which is getting an agent, going to Hollywood, going on auditions, that sort of thing. Now it's very different. Now, if you want to make it in this business, you better make it yourself. And that means you need to make your own movies. You want to show the world you can take on a leading role, you better make yourself a leading role. And then if you really do have the chops, that's when you'll get noticed. It's very different now than then. But I actually prefer this because now you're in control. You're in the driver's seat if you choose to drive. It's a long, hard road. It will be some of the most demanding thing you'll ever do if you do it well. But it's well worth it. It's well worth it. Get your chops, learn what you're doing, pay attention. I will give a pitch to my producing partner. He has a program called Be Your Own Hollywood. Go to beyourownhollywood.com, because I'm telling you, if you want to make a movie, that is the best step-by-step of what to do as a producer. Because you want to be a director, you want to be that lead actor, and you think you can do it without being a producer as well, you are dead wrong. You better know how to produce your own stuff. You got to raise money. I mean, it's huge. So you got to do everything. You have to wear all the hats. So watch that, and that will give you the producing side of it. There's a lot more things you can do to get your chops up. And if you don't have the chops yet in the filmmaking side, start making your shorts and start watching lots of videos. I would suggest film school, but it's so damn expensive anymore. For most people, it's really not a reasonable thing. And you can learn it on your own. But when I say on your own, that means self-study. You know, read the books, watch, you know, the people who are in it that really know what they're doing. And that, you know, because there's tons of people on YouTube and different things like that you can take some workshops and then make your movie. Making your first movie will cost about as much as it would have if you had gone to film school. So you might as well come out with a product. And if you follow what Joel says and Be Your Own Hollywood, you might actually have something that you can really sell. Whereas I made a lot of things that were not really sellable, you know, that much until now. And so I followed the steps, you know.
Wow. Yeah, that is some amazing advice. Like I'm feeling like I want to go out there and make something now. Like that was great. Thank you for that. Like I guess Sam, do you have anything else to throw out there for Deborah?
I think that's pretty much it. I think maybe we give her our final question.
I have just one more question for you. Usually I end it with, what's a movie you would pair 13 Fanboy with if you were going to have a double feature? So
Okay.
I will throw that out there as well. And then I do have one more question to sneak in right after that.
Okay, that sounds good. I would love to pair it with Halloween Kills. I think that would be a blast.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do something at the drive-in with Halloween Kills. I would love that. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
Heck, maybe I'll go hit up a Halloween Kills screening after we see it at the State next week.
There you go. Then you'll have your own self-organized double feature.
Double feature, yeah.
I guess the last question then I have is, of course, where can people find the movie? Where can they watch it at home? Where can they watch it in theaters if that is available for them?
All right. If you'll go to 13fanboy.com and you'll see Now Playing, which is a little bit of a trick since it's now playing in October 22nd, but I couldn't think of a better title for my button. So it will have the list of theaters and the list of platforms. Eventually, in about 2 months after the release, I don't have a date yet, we'll have DVDs as well. But we are in, and I know I'm going to miss a lot of places, but we're in Chicago, Minneapolis, Detroit, LA, Orange County. We are in Phoenix, Tucson, New Orleans. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep going. But there's several more that I can't think of at the moment. Well, South Dakota, guys, help me out here. Sioux Falls.
Sioux Falls, yep.
Let's see. So there's several places like that. You can go on there, you can find that, and then VOD platforms. Amazon, it'll be on that. It'll be on Vudu, It'll be on In Demand, which is a large company that does all of the pay-per-view kind of things. They have about 90 million customers. So you can do pay-per-view that way. You can stream it on numerous platforms. There's the Xbox, iTunes, and several others. And that's all on 13fanboy.com as well.
Awesome.
Well, awesome. That is amazing. I am so excited for everybody to check it out, including myself. I cannot wait to watch this movie. And Deborah, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us today. We cannot wait to watch this on the big screen as big as possible as we can in South Dakota.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. This has been awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate you. Thanks for taking time with me. And when you see Dominic, give him a big hug for me.